Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I am running tier 2 dark sites in a dual hawk setup, as you can see on the screen. Now I often do tier 3s and tier 4s, but I thought I'd downgrade to a tier 2. I'd not run a tier 3 or 4 for a while and thought we'd start off slowly, and I decided to run these for an hour just to see how much I'd make, and I thought I would share that with you guys. So as you can see in the first room, it's relatively straightforward. It's all these little blaster needle thingies. They're really easy to take down with the 2 hawk setup. I'll go through the fit later on, but basically I'm just going to talk through the first 7 or so minutes of what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and then move on to the income that I made from this, showing you how it all went. So as you can see, with the dual hawk setup, I've got it all on one screen. Ordinarily I'd have this broken over 2 screens, but it was just easier to record, so I banged it all on the same screen so you could see what was going on, just to make it a little bit easier to follow. So with the small ships here, I don't really focus fire because it's not really necessary. It takes 2 or 3 volleys to get through, and by the time I've spent the time focusing fire and that, it's just not really worth it. So down to the last one. You can see the power of the 2 hawks together. Now I do have pretty good skills when it comes to piloting the hawk here. I think it's level 4 and pretty much 5 for most of the missile skills. There we go, that's the first room cleared. Onto the second room. Now second room doesn't pose much of a challenge. We've got the deep water and we've got the spearfish cruiser size ships. Now for a frigate, the deep water really isn't any issue at all, so basically just going to concentrate on the cruiser size ships and then move on to the deep water afterwards. So on these I'm focusing firing a bit more because obviously there's only 2 of them, it's a bit easier, and yeah, it just speeds it up. The cruisers take a few more volleys to get through than the frigs do. As you can see, they go down pretty quickly there. Now at this point I'm more interested in the cache than the deep water, so blow open the cache, check what's inside. 3.5 mil, and now it's on to the deep water. So the larger of the ships in the Abyssal sites do take a bit of killing, especially in a frig, and as you can see I've sped this up. This doesn't pose much threat if you just orbit it or orbit a gate or keep moving, but it does take quite a while to take down, and even with 2 ships firing at it, it still takes me about 4 minutes to get this thing down. However, they do pose little to no threat whatsoever as long as you keep up some kind of movement. So what I usually do, I'll either orbit the gate or the cache. So as you see, that went down relatively well, and on to the next. Now when I'm dual boxing or tri boxing, I have a main character, as you can see it's the left hand side here, so that's the main focus. The right hand side orbits the right hand side character orbits the left hand side character, and basically the left hand side character takes the lead in everything. It's just an easier way of maintaining what's happening basically on the screen. Otherwise it can get a bit complicated, because if you forget to accidentally orbit something, it can be a problem because your ship will just sail off into the distance. Now as you can see, the downbacks go down relatively quickly with a bit of focus fire. The Vedmak doesn't really pose much of a challenge in regards to DPS that it can do. As you can see, none of my shields really take any kind of damage whatsoever. If the Vedmak does get a good shot on you, it can hurt somewhat, but all in all it's nothing that the shield booster can't handle. So focusing firing on the last downback. With the darks as well, the bonus is that their tracking is reduced, so they do struggle, and their optimal range is reduced, so it does make it quite hard for them to hit you. And the tertiary bonus with the darks is that you get a speed increase, so your missiles are hitting them fine and their guns are obviously struggling to hit you back. So with a bit of focus fire again, the red map goes down relatively swiftly. Bit by bit, little by little. So that was the last room, and so we completed that in about 7 minutes, I think it was. Back out to Empire. So from the first site there, we made 10 million ISK, not including any blueprints. I don't really count the BPCs, because again they're a bit finicky and some of them are worth a little bit. If it's for ship BPCs, then I'll count them. If it's a faction, I'll count it, and if it's some of the heaty sink things, I'll count them. But other than that, basically everything else will be discounted in regards. So I could have just averaged it out, said right, well, I made 10 million there in 7-8 minutes, and so that's 80 million over an hour, give or take. Best of luck, get on with it. But I thought I'd do a more thorough go of this, and would do it, so say for an hour solid. You'll see if you go back to the start, the timestamp on it, I started at 7:30 and I will finish at 8:30. So this was the last site I did, culminating for an hour's worth of T2 darks. And so here we are with the spoils. As you can see, the total value of the bits and bobs is 90 million. And then I've got a Kiki BPC which is worth 30, and the entropic radiation sink is 12, and then the Damvac is worth around about 4. Now I'm not going to include any of the other BPCs because again it's a little awkward to do, but that's 136 million ISK for an hour on the dot. And so as said, so as you saw, that the level of risk there was pretty much next to none. Now I was quite happy with that. It was more than I expected, to be perfectly honest. So obviously I thought, well, if I hadn't got the Kiki BPC or the radiation sink, obviously the value would have been a lot lower potentially, so say more close to the 90 million that it's showing at the bottom corner. I thought, well, 90 mil, it's decent for tier 2, but it's not that great when all's said and done. And so I thought, well, I'll do what any normal person will do, and I'll run another hour's worth of these sites, and off we go. And so after an hour of additional running, I came out, as you can see here, with 124 million, which was better than the previous one, as well as a Kiki print and a Leshek print, bring us to a total of 172 million ISK for the hour, which again I was relatively surprised at, and it was a lot more than I was expecting. So yeah, what could we do from this point? And so I'd chalk the first 2 hours up to just being a little bit fortunate, and so thought, well, might as well run another hour, and again then I'll average out the average for the 3 hours and see what it comes out at. So after the third hour of running, we have a total of 124 million ISK base, and then obviously we've got another Kiki BPC, which is the third in 3 hours, an entropic radiation sink, which is a 5 run, and then the faction turret. Now all that combined comes to 192 million ISK. And so all that came to 502 million hours for 3 hours of dual boxing tier 2 darks. Now that's an average of 167 million ISK an hour, which I think for tier 2 darks is pretty decent. I wasn't expecting it to be that much, to be perfectly honest. I was expecting around about the 100 mil mark, so again, nice surprise. But yeah, so decent is to be made if you've got the characters and the skill points, etc., to be able to do it. Now this was averaged over the 3 hour period, and I may have just got lucky for the 3 hours that I ran, but I don't know offhand because I haven't done it for any particular amount of time there. Although I think 3 hours is a decent amount of time to give us an average. It wasn't like I just cherry picked one run and said, well, you know, I picked up a Kikimora blah 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 on this run, which came out at 30 million ISK, times that by however many I can do in an hour, etc., gives us X. So I think it's kind of a fair comparison. My characters are quite optimized. My skills are pretty decent for it, so obviously with lower skills you'll be a bit slower, but you know, the general list there is there to be made. And so say I didn't really run into any encounters that give me any issues whatsoever. So for relatively straightforward, easy, anytime you want, 150 million ISK an hour, yeah, that's not bad going. On that note, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been useful and helpful. Slightly different to my normal videos, but again, I thought I'd put it out there because it's something that I have done in the past and do from occasion, although I haven't run any particularly recently. So if you got any questions, put them down in the comments as always. Like, subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content or more of content. Look through some of my past videos if you are relatively new to EVE. I've got some, well, I like to think I've got some good stuff on there, some helpful stuff. And if you have any other questions, then drop into the StrangeNet channel in game. I'm happy to help wherever I can with whatever I can. And on that note, fly safe,